William Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew has recently resurfaced as a central text within modern online dating discourse. In conservative and red pill circles, Petruchio's tactics serve as a practical manual for managing relationships. These communities look to the play for specific instructions on how to handle strong-willed or independent women. Modern male-focused influencers have adopted this framework, arguing that masculine dominance is the necessary corrective to perceived chaos in feminine behavior. They praise Petruchio's specific psychological tactics. They point to his disruption of Katerina's sleep and food as textbook applications of negative reinforcement and aversive conditioning, designed to systematically break a partner's resistance. But treating a relationship as a behavioral puzzle to be dominated forces a choice between the enforcement of compliance and the possibility of connection. The modern manosphere strategy relies heavily on a concept called holding frame. It promises absolute control, yet the logic of its architecture leads toward relational alienation. To understand why, we have to evaluate two competing theoretical models of masculine strategy. This is Model A, the rational frame. It operates through behavioral management and relies on static boundaries, keeping the relationship in an unchanging state of being. This is Model B, the shared narrative vision. It operates on a non-rational trajectory, moving the relationship toward a state of becoming. Using the philosophical frameworks of O.G. Rose, we will map the diverging outcomes of these structures, one leading toward mutual sedation, the other toward a shared vision that attempts to bridge the gap between rationality and emotion. Establishing a deep connection requires moving past the illusion of control. We have to establish the baseline environment. The Society of Padua, much like the modern dating market, is a captured transactional system where daughters are auctioned off to the highest bidder. This creates a relational impasse governed by the rules of game theory, specifically a Nash equilibrium. This matrix illustrates the captured system. When participants act purely in rational self-interest, paths converge in this bottom right quadrant, a suboptimal dead end. This represents map sealing, where everyone relies on deceptive tactics to protect their illusions and maintain the status quo. The standard participants in Padua tolerate this. Baptista hides mercenary motives behind feigned concern, and Bianca uses feminine wiles to manipulate suitors. They actively uphold a system of lies to avoid the messy truth of human relationships. Katerina is the exception. She is the only participant who refuses to enter this deceptive matrix. Her shrewishness is a defensive reaction to a society that treats her as a commodity to be managed and traded. She uses abrasive thorns to push men away because she realizes a broken system cannot be beaten by playing by its rational rules. The rational frame erects strict boundaries to solve the dating market. External tests bounce off, leaving partners isolated. It presumes the gap between male and female rationality cannot be crossed. A marriage governed by behavioral management often devolves into an alliance of combatants operating under a tense truce. To cope, couples establish divided domains. They live as roommates, retreating into isolated vices like pornography or smut to fill the void. The rational frame trades connection for mutual sedation, leaving both partners alienated from one another. Model B, the kenotic approach, abandons the rigid defenses of the rational frame, instead of enforcing divided domains. A shared narrative vision attempts to accommodate both rational logic and emotional intuition. It invites a partner to weave their dreams together, anchoring the relationship in a shared future rather than micromanaging the present. This requires shifting the relationship's axis away from static being and onto a trajectory of becoming. A narrative vision offers a structure designed to contain the longings of both partners without resulting in sedation. Petruchio bypasses the deceptive map of Paduan society by focusing on Katerina's true territory. He uses a non-rational tool called the imputation of virtue. Even when Katerina resorts to insults or violence, Petruchio remains unfazed, persistently praising her as the definition of sweetness and kindness. By ignoring her insults and praise-bombing her violence, Petruchio denies Katerina the conflict her trauma-induced map expects. By persistently seeing her as the ideal, he creates the psychological space for her to step out of her defensive posture. Prioritizing the territory of a person's nature over their defensive map removes the incentive for hostility and acts as a catalyst for change. This strategy culminates on the road back to Padula. Petruchio forces Caterina to look at the sun and agree that it is the moon. The manosphere interprets this as the ultimate victory of frame enforcement, the moment Caterina's spirit is finally broken. But viewed through a different lens, Caterina is crossing a Gödel point. A Gödel point is the threshold where an internally consistent system is shattered by an external truth. Caterina encounters a shift in how she perceives her reality. She sees that despite her constant resistance, Petruchio's devotion has remained the only consistent element in her environment. If she can accept the absurdity of the sun being the moon because he says so, she can also trust the virtues he has spoken over her. She chooses to trust his unyielding love over her own defensive anger, breaking the deadlock of the Paduan market. Caterina takes on the role Petruchio spoke over her, doing so entirely of her own volition. The rational frame can only produce a subjugated captive, trapped in a performance of obedience. A shared narrative vision creates a foundation where both partners move in the same direction, exiting the defensive games of the Paduan market. Intimacy cannot be achieved through behavioral rules or transactional logic. To escape the Nash equilibrium of the modern dating market, one must have the courage to look past the map, endure the thorns, and forge a marriage based on a shared narrative vision.